The news hit Nigeria like a heavy storm. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu has been convicted, and the nation is shaking. People are talking. People are worried. Many Nigerians feel that once again the system has shown weakness instead of leadership. At a time when citizens already wake up with fear, uncertainty, and economic struggle, this new development arrives like fuel poured on a burning flame. It demands the attention of every Nigerian, because it is not just about one man, it touches the foundation of what the nation is becoming. Peter Obi steps forward and says something simple, direct, and powerful. This should make every serious Nigerian stop and think. Those words cut deep. They are not loud. They are not emotional. They are not dramatic. They are calm, measured, but heavy with meaning. They challenge the country to pause and reflect instead of moving forward blindly. Obi's message is clear: this is not the time to increase tension. This is not the moment for the government to act with force and expect peace. He speaks at a moment when Nigeria is already fighting crises on multiple fronts. Families cannot feed themselves. Children are dropping out of school because parents can no longer pay fees. Youth roam the streets, educated but unemployed, full of anger and hopelessness. Many businesses are closing. The cost of living has risen to painful heights. People who once lived normal lives are now choosing between buying food and paying for transportation. The nation is tired. At the same time, insecurity has reached levels that once seemed unimaginable. Farmers are scared to return to their farms. Roads that were once busy are now feared. Communities have been abandoned because staying is dangerous. In some places, nightfall feels like a warning, not rest. People lock their doors early not for comfort, but for survival. In such a climate of fear, hardship, and frustration, the conviction of Nnamdi Kanu lands like a sudden blow to the nation's already fragile stability. Obi argues that something crucial was missing from the beginning: reason. Logical, patient, inclusive dialogue that seeks to understand rather than punish. He reminds the nation that he has always said Nnamdi Kanu should never have been arrested. To him, the arrest, the long detention, and now the conviction show not strength, not order, but a clear failure of leadership. A government that cannot face disagreement without force is a government that may not fully understand the message being sent by its own citizens. Obi's point is sharp but not hostile: when leaders fail to address the cause, the problem grows bigger. When leaders refuse to listen, the ignored voices become louder. When leaders use force instead of wisdom, peace becomes harder to achieve. He explains that coercion should be a last resort, used only when all peaceful solutions have been explored and exhausted. But in this case, it appears that reason was not exhausted. In fact, Obi suggests that reason may not have been used at all. This is where the real national danger lies. Because Nigeria is not simply dealing with a legal matter, it is dealing with the emotional, political, and social weight behind that legal matter. Nnamdi Kanu has supporters who feel unheard. They have grievances that are older than the current administration. These grievances, about marginalization, fairness, and belonging, did not start today. They have been building for decades, passed from one government to the next. Instead of solving them, Nigeria has repeatedly responded with force, bans, arrests, and silence. The result is a pressure cooker of frustration that has grown year after year. So Obi warns, this conviction may not calm the nation. It may not close the book on the issue. Instead, it could trigger more resentment, more protests, more shutdowns, and more instability. And at this moment, Nigeria is not in a position to absorb more unrest. The economy is too fragile. The people are too tired. The government is too overwhelmed with problems it has not solved. The nation is walking on thin ice, and every decision matters. He also highlights another painful truth: Nigeria is seen by many as a nation that reacts with force before dialogue. It is a nation that hears the alarm bell but refuses to ask why it is ringing. It responds to the fire without checking who started it or what caused it. And that pattern has never brought peace. It has only postponed the real problem, pushing it into the future where it grows even larger. Obi's message in this moment is not emotional. It is strategic. It is a message that experienced leaders around the world understand. A country is not kept together by fear. A nation is not united by fear. A society does not move forward by punishment alone. Peace is built through inclusion. Security is built through understanding. Trust is earned through accountability, not intimidation. He is not defending crime. He is not rejecting the law. Instead, he is saying that law without wisdom becomes a weapon instead of a solution. He is warning that leadership which focuses only on force may win battles but lose the nation. And so, Chapter 1 ends at the crossroads. Nigeria stands in a moment that will test its maturity, its wisdom, and its future. Peter Obi is urging the country to think before it acts, to build solutions instead of just enforcing rules, and to remember that the people are not enemies, they are citizens demanding to be heard. The breaking point has arrived. What happens next will shape Nigeria's story in the days, weeks, and years to come. Peter Obi explained something many Nigerians already know but often feel powerless to change. Nnamdi Kanu did not raise new issues. He did not bring complaints that were unheard of or impossible to solve. The concerns at the heart of the agitation came from long-standing political, economic, and social frustrations that many citizens in the southeast have expressed for decades. These frustrations did not appear suddenly. They grew slowly, from repeated experiences of neglect, inequality, and political exclusion. In a functional society, such grievances would be met with dialogue, understanding, and reform. But in Nigeria, they were met with silence, force, and legal pressure. Obi says clearly that the issues Kanu raised required something simple: wisdom, empathy, and the willingness of leaders to listen. He is not talking about complicated national conferences or endless committees. He is talking about the basic responsibility of leadership to engage with citizens before their frustration turns into open conflict. Nigeria did not need guns, arrests, or trials to resolve these complaints. It needed discussion. It needed humility. It needed a government brave enough to face the truth rather than suppress it. Instead, the government's approach created deeper mistrust. What could have been a national conversation became a national wound. Instead of reducing tension, the government's response increased it. Instead of reaching out to a region that felt marginalized, the authorities doubled down with force, creating the perception that discontent was being punished rather than understood. This choice now forces the country to deal with the consequences. Nigeria is at a time when citizens are facing the harshest economic realities in years. Prices of fuel, food, transport, and basic needs have risen beyond the reach of countless families. Parents who used to save are now eating their savings just to survive. Those who were surviving are now sinking. Students are dropping out because school fees are too high. People are losing jobs. Businesses are shutting down. The future feels uncertain for millions. On top of this, insecurity continues to spread like a shadow across the nation. From bandit attacks to kidnappings, from rural communities to major highways, the feeling of safety that a nation should provide is fading. People feel unprotected. They feel abandoned. In such a climate, even small political decisions can trigger large emotional reactions. So one can imagine how a decision as heavy as Kanu's conviction lands on the hearts of people already struggling to breathe. While some people defend the government's decision by saying the law has taken its course, Peter Obi reminds the nation that leadership is more than following the law word for word. Leadership requires judgment. It requires timing. It requires understanding when a legal solution will heal and when it will harm. Around the world, nations have faced similar situations, conflicts with separatists, rebel leaders, activists, and groups demanding justice. In many successful cases, leaders did not simply rely on courts and jail sentences. They used political solutions. They negotiated settlements. They allowed referendums. They offered amnesty. They talked face-to-face with those who felt unheard. They did this not because they were weak, but because they understood that peace is a larger project than punishment. Peter Obi's argument is that Nigeria should not act as if it is different from the rest of the world. If other nations understand that legal force cannot always fix deep national wounds, Nigeria should understand it too. If other countries use political dialogue to heal divisions, Nigeria should not act as if that approach is foreign or unnecessary. In fact, the handling of Kanu's case has become, in Obi's words, a mirror of how the government is behaving overall. He describes it as a man trapped in a hole. Instead of stopping to think, instead of looking upward and searching for a way out, the man keeps digging deeper. The problem is not just that he is making the hole deeper for himself, he is dragging everyone else down with him. The nation becomes heavier with tension, distrust, and hopelessness. And deeper still, the conviction does not deal with the root issues. It only tries to silence the result of those issues. But the concerns that created the agitation remain alive, untouched, and unresolved. Anyone who understands politics knows that a problem ignored today always returns with more force tomorrow. And if tomorrow's leaders repeat the same mistakes, the cycle will never end. This is why the situation is not just a legal matter, it is a national test. It challenges Nigeria to decide whether it will continue responding to political issues with force, or whether it will grow into a country that listens, negotiates, and reforms. It challenges leaders to choose the road that builds unity instead of widening divisions. Peter Obi believes that the government has taken a path that deepens the national crisis instead of solving it. And he warns that unless a wiser, more inclusive approach is adopted, the nation will continue to dig deeper into its problems instead of rising above them. Chapter 2 closes with the truth that Nigeria still has a choice, but that choice must begin with leadership brave enough to face the real problem, not just the symptom. Peter Obi ends his message with a challenge that reaches far beyond the case of Nnamdi Kanu. It reaches into the heart of Nigeria's political future. If the country truly wants to become a united, peaceful, and progressive nation, then its leaders must choose a different path, one based on healing instead of hostility, understanding instead of force, and national interest instead of political ego. This moment is not simply about law and order, it is about the kind of country Nigeria wants to become. Obi makes it clear that leadership is not measured by how many people are punished or how strictly the law is enforced. True leadership is measured by how problems are solved, how tensions are reduced, and how citizens are made to feel part of their own nation. A government that rules through fear may silence people temporarily, but it cannot build lasting peace. Peace is not the absence of noise, it is the presence of justice. It is the knowledge that even when citizens disagree, they will be treated with fairness, respect, and dignity. He argues that Nigeria now faces a critical choice. One road leads to more division, more anger, and more instability. The other leads to unity, dialogue, and national progress. But the government must be bold enough to choose the harder road, the road of listening, negotiating, and addressing the real grievances that fuel unrest. Responding with force may look strong in the moment, but it shows weakness in the long term. It suggests that the government cannot win the argument, so it tries to win the silence. Obi reminds the nation that Nigeria is not the first country to face agitation, separatist movements, or strong political disagreements. Around the world, nations that overcame such challenges did not do so through punishment alone. South Africa used negotiations and truth commissions. The United Kingdom used political dialogue with groups in Northern Ireland. Many countries in South America and Asia created systems for autonomy, power sharing, or constitutional reforms that made every part of the country feel included. They did not destroy unity, they strengthened it. They built nations where no group felt invisible or irrelevant. Nigeria can do the same. It has the power, the history, and the institutions to address deep national questions maturely. What is missing is political will. Leaders must be willing to talk, not just talk down. They must be willing to understand, not just issue orders. They must be willing to accept that disagreement is not betrayal, and that solving problems is more important than proving who is right. Obi believes that the government has spent too much time treating symptoms and not enough time treating the disease. Arrests, bans, and convictions may stop individuals, but they do not stop the frustrations that gave birth to the movement in the first place. If those issues remain unanswered, the movement will return, maybe under another leader, maybe in another form, but with the same message. Nations that ignore problems only delay their own peace. He warns that this is not just a political issue, it is an emotional one. People in the Southeast feel unheard, misunderstood, and excluded. Whether anyone agrees with that feeling or not, it is real. And real emotions must be addressed with real solutions. A leader who cannot face the emotions of the nation cannot heal the nation. So Obi calls for leaders who can rise above personal pride. Leaders who understand that governing a diverse country requires patience and maturity. Leaders who can look beyond court judgments and ask, does this decision bring the country closer together, or does it push us further apart? If the answer is the latter, then the decision, no matter how legal, must be reconsidered. He also speaks to the citizens, reminding them that anger without strategy does not build a better country. True change comes from engaging, voting, organizing, and demanding fairness through peaceful and democratic means. But for citizens to choose hope, leaders must give them a reason to hope. Nigeria stands at a moment that will be remembered for years. The conviction of Nnamdi Kanu will not be judged only by the legal terms written in a courtroom. It will be judged by what comes after, by whether it leads to peace or instability, by whether it opens doors or closes them, by whether leaders use this moment to unite the nation or deepen its divisions. History is watching. Citizens are watching. The world is watching. The government's next steps could define whether Nigeria steps forward as a mature democracy or retreats into reactive governance. The country has everything to gain by choosing dialogue, political solutions, and genuine reconciliation. It has everything to lose if it chooses force and silence once again. In the end, Obi's message is simple but powerful: Nigeria still has a choice. The story is not over. The conviction is not the final chapter. What comes next, how the government responds, how leaders think, how citizens react, will determine whether this moment becomes a turning point for unity or another chapter of national pain. The next move will decide whether Nigeria rises or sinks deeper into its challenges. The responsibility lies with those in power, and the entire nation will live with the consequences.